Welcome to the deep dive. You've given us a really interesting set of sources today, basically. A whole bunch of Nigerian newspaper headlines and updates, all from one day, May 13th, 2025. Our job here is to kind of sift through these for you, pull out the key themes, the main events, just to give you a clear snapshot of what was going on in Nigeria on that specific day. And, just to start with something completely different, did you know that food actually tastes different when you fly?
Oh, really? How so?
Yeah, apparently the altitude, it changes your body chemistry, so things taste, well, different than they do on the ground.
Yeah.
Makes you think twice about that airline food, doesn't it?
It does. It's funny how, yes, subtle things like altitude can have such a direct effect. It's a good reminder, actually, even for today's headlines. Sometimes there are underlying factors influencing things in ways we don't immediately see.
Exactly. Okay, so let's dive into this day in Nigeria. A big theme, unfortunately, seems to be security challenges. We're seeing several reports coming out of Borno State up in the northeast.
Right. Tragically, there was a Boko Haram attack on a military base there. 5 soldiers lost their lives.
And that's not all from Borno, sadly. Another report mentions 2 education staff killed by a Boko Haram landmine in the same state.
It's just relentless. And what's striking is, alongside these reports, we see news about a speakers conference happening, specifically calling for, more action against insecurity.
So high-level discussions are happening, but the reality on the ground, at least on this day, was still incredibly harsh.
Precisely. It raises that constant question about the gap between policy discussions and effective implementation on the front lines.
Yeah, absolutely. And the security picture isn't just Borno, is it? We're seeing other things crop up elsewhere.
No, it's quite widespread. For example, the police opposing IPOB's planned Biafran Day lockdown, IPOB being the indigenous people of Biafra seeking secession for the Southeast. That opposition hints at potential tensions, doesn't it?
Definitely. Managing those regional dynamics must be tricky. Then there's a kidnapping report from Benue State.
Yes, an immigration officer abducted. And the ransom demand is, substantial and $20 million. It just highlights how kidnapping remains a serious, pervasive threat.
And even smaller scale clashes, like the one in Ondo between a herdsman and a vigilance group. It shows those local intercommunal tensions are still simmering.
It really paints a picture of multifaceted security challenges. You've got the large-scale insurgency, you've got kidnapping, banditry, and these localized, often resource-based conflicts. That's not just one thing.
And how is the government responding strategically? We see the Chief of Defense Staff visited Russia.
Yeah, reportedly outlining Nigeria's military needs. And at the same time, the Nigerian Air Force was doing aerial rehearsals over Uja and Lagos for their anniversary.
So maybe trying to project strength while also seeking international support or equipment.
It could certainly look that way,
Yeah.
engaging Russia for military needs while showcasing domestic air power. It suggests an effort to, perhaps, diversify partnerships and bolster capabilities to tackle these varied threats we're seeing.
Interesting. And there's one more security-related item, is there? About the NEDC.
Ah, yes, the Northeast Development Commission. They're engaging scholars, it seems, to counter what they call misleading Arabic doctrines.
So tackling the ideology behind some of the extremism, not just the military aspect.
Exactly. It's that longer-term strategy, recognizing that you need to address the narratives that fuel these movements, not just the fighters themselves. It's a vital part of the puzzle, even if it's less visible.
Right. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What about governance and politics? There seems to be a lot going on there, too.
There really is. First up, a pretty major alleged internet fraud case, 109 foreigners involved. Their court date is set for July 2nd.
Wow, 109 foreigners. That's a huge scale.
It is. It really underscores the challenges with cybercrime and how international it's become. It points to the need for, strong cybersecurity and cooperation across borders.
And on the government's own finances, there seems to be some friction. Something about the budget and the World Bank.
Yeah, a reported disagreement between the federal government and the World Bank over how to fund the budget, which is a massive $54.9 trillion.
So when you've got a budget that big, disagreements on funding are pretty significant.
Absolutely. The World Bank often ties its funding to certain conditions or policy recommendations. So a disagreement could mean different views on fiscal strategy or priorities. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out for budget implementation.
And speaking of government finance, they repaid a sukuk and issued a new one.
That's right. Repaid the first N100 billion sukuk, those are the Islamic bonds, and are issuing a new N300 billion series. It seems like, standard practice for managing government debt and raising funds.
Using different tools to finance projects. Makes sense.
Exactly. It shows they're continuing to use these kinds of instruments, and there's presumably investor confidence there.
The Federal Executive Council, the FEC, seems to have been busy too, approving plans for cheaper medicines and job creation.
Yes, those are definitely key public concerns. And they also approved a huge amount, and $1.2 trillion, for projects roads, power, aviation.
That's a serious investment in infrastructure.
It signals intent, certainly, trying to address those core socioeconomic needs and also build for the longer term.
And a more routine item, renewing life assurance for the president, VP, and federal workers.
Standard procedure, yes, part of the government's obligations as an employer.
Sticking with infrastructure, particularly power, the minister mentioned restructuring two discos, the distribution companies.
Yes, two underperforming ones. The power sector's been a persistent headache, so any move like restructuring gets a lot of attention. People are hoping it might finally lead to better electricity supply.
It could involve operational changes, maybe financial, maybe even ownership.
Potentially any of those, yeah. The goal would be to improve efficiency and service delivery, which has been a major bottleneck.
Now, over in the legislature, Speaker Abbas made a point about laws needing implementation and oversight.
He did, saying that just making laws isn't enough. You need to make sure they're actually working and hold people accountable. It's a call for, well, better governance, really.
Sounds fundamental.
It is. Laws are only good if they're enforced and achieving what they're supposed to.
We also see some legal tussles involving political figures. Contempt claims delaying one suit, and adjournment in another challenging suspensions.
Yeah, these things often reflect deeper political battles playing out in the courts. Delays, adjournments, it's often part of the legal maneuvering when the stakes are high politically.
And the political landscape itself seems active. Defections, protests over primaries.
Definitely. A lawmaker switching from NNPP to APC in Kano. Then in Lagos, APC aspirants protesting local government primaries, leading to an appeal committee being set up. It's all the part of the churn, isn't it?
Internal party dynamics, yeah. Competition, realignment.
Especially as parties look ahead, maybe towards future elections already. These moves can shift alliances, and managing internal disputes is key for party stability.
And the war of words between parties continues. Ganduje and Wike predicting the PDP's collapse.
While the PDP chairman, Wabara, pushes back, saying they're resilient. Classic political rhetoric. Plus, an appointment within the PDP, Lucky Igbinedion, to their board of trustees.
So trying to shore up their own positions while attacking rivals.
Pretty much standard political playbook stuff. Appointments like that are strategic, aimed at strengthening the party structure.
We also saw Governor Sewell of Nasarawa reaffirming loyalty to Tinubu and the APC for 2027. Quite early for that.
It is early. Such declarations can be about consolidating support, signaling unity within the party, and maybe influencing others' calculations.
Meanwhile, that situation with Governor Fubara's suspension, the legal challenge is still ongoing.
Seems so. Iba's seeking more time to file a defense. It shows the court case is active and moving through the process, albeit perhaps slowly.
Okay, let's look at some state-level governance actions. Kano's governor ordering recruitment of school guards, a lot of them.
Yes, 17,600 school guards. And also approving a $200 million loan for teachers. Seems like very direct responses to local security in schools and support for educators.
But in Rivers, Governor Wike is apparently threatening to withhold funds from area councils because of a teacher's strike.
Right. That shows the kind of financial power states can have over local councils. And it highlights potential conflicts over resources and how strikes are handled.
Oh, on a more positive note for state governors, Kebbi's Governor Idris got praise from First Bank and announced mining investment.
Good news for Kebbi. A good relationship with a bank helps, and mining investment could boost the local economy, create jobs.
And Bay Elsa planning to immortalize Clark with tributes coming in.
Yeah, recognizing prominent figures is important for states honoring their legacy, reinforcing history.
Lagos rescheduling public service exams, more of an admin point, but important for those involved.
Definitely. Need smooth processes for those things.
And Niger state authorities shutting down a brothel and bars near a mosque.
That highlights how local governance can be shaped by, religious and social norms in a community, enforcing certain standards.
Lagos also has big plans for revenue generation, targeting idle assets.
Yes. And $3 trillion in idle assets they want to leverage to boost their IGR, their internally generated revenue. That could be a huge boost to their finances if they pull it off.
Makes sense, finding ways to fund things without just relying on federal money.
Exactly. It's a strategic move for financial autonomy.
And the Transport Union, NURTW, in Kebbi, is happy with Governor Idris over a mass transit scheme.
Seems so. Praising the initiative. Better public transport makes a real difference to people's lives, mobility, cost. So positive feedback there is a good sign.
Unfortunately, less positive news from Plateau, emphasizing hygiene after 4 cholera deaths.
A really stark reminder about public health basics, sanitation, clean water. There's still critical challenges in some areas.
And in Sokoto, the Labor Congress, NLC, is pushing the governor on paying gratuity to retired local government workers.
Ugh. Pensions and gratuities. A recurring issue in many places. It's about fulfilling obligations to people who served, ensuring their financial security after retirement.
Finally, on the political front again, back in Rivers, elders are framing Governor Fubara's visit to Wike as a move for peace.
Yeah, interpreting it as a sacrifice for peace suggests ongoing efforts, maybe behind the scenes, to reconcile political factions there. Symbolic gestures can matter in easing tensions.
Okay, let's move into economy and business headlines, some we haven't touched on yet. The government criminalizing theft of manhole covers.
Sounds specific, but yeah. Apparently moving to criminalize usurpers of government assets related to manholes. It's about protecting essential infrastructure. Vandalism like that causes real problems. Safety hazards, service disruptions.
Makes sense. On the macro level, those World Bank assessments boosted government revenue, potentially lower inflation.
Right. Revenue up to N31 trillion, credited to economic reforms. And a projection that CBN policies might help bring inflation down towards 22.1%, potentially encouraging signs, though inflation is still very high.
But the CBN is also acting because oil prices are falling, trying to keep foreign exchange flowing in.
Exactly. Oil prices dropping is a worry for Nigeria, given the reliance on oil exports for foreign currency. So the CBN is rolling out measures to sustain FX inflows from other sources, trying to stabilize the currency and economy.
And TFD, the education fund, is getting tough with universities.
Threatening to cut funding for non-performing institutions, yes. It's about accountability, making sure the money leads to quality education and research, trying to drive up standards.
NASA, the maritime agency, has named banks to disperse the cabotage fund.
Yes, 12 banks. That fund is meant to help develop Nigerian shipping capacity. So getting it operational through these banks is a step towards empowering local maritime businesses.
Good news for drivers, maybe.
Yeah.
Damn good reducing petrol prices.
Reportedly down to N825 per liter. Seems like increased competition from importers might be pushing prices down, which is usually good for consumers.
Could put pressure on other sellers, too.
Potentially, yes.
And in the fintech world, Airtel Money is planning an IPO.
It's like it. Planning to go public to compete better in that booming digital finance market shows how dynamic that sector is in Nigeria. An IPO would give them capital to expand and innovate.
But there's some resistance to a new tariff on imported cargo.
Yes, agents reportedly opposing a new $100 tariff on Nigerian-bound cargoes. The worry is it will just increase the cost of imported goods for everyone.
Understandable concern.
Definitely. Tariffs can easily raise costs for businesses and consumers.
On a more positive note, a Nigerian team won a business pitch competition with an agri-tech solution.
Yeah, that's great news. Showcases innovation, particularly in agricultural technology, which has huge potential for Nigeria improving farming, food security, the economy.
But then there's this allegation about an aircraft manufacturer frustrating a Nigerian airline.
Yes, according to Kiyamo. If true, it points to potential hurdles Nigerian airlines face just trying to operate and compete, maybe in dealing with international suppliers or manufacturers, concerning for the local aviation industry.
Okay, let's turn to education and social issues. This crackdown on lecturers over sex for grades seems significant. Over 50 involved.
Yes, across universities and polytechnics, it's a very serious issue, obviously. Holding educators accountable for that kind of abuse is absolutely crucial for student safety and academic integrity. A necessary step.
And relatedly, Kano University shut down a female hostel over immorality.
Reportedly, yes. It reflects the university setting its own standards for student conduct, likely influenced by local cultural or religious norms. Universities often play that role in shaping behavior within their communities.
Following the UTME mass failure reports, JMB is investigating technical glitches.
Yes, engaging VCs and IT experts. That exam is the gateway to university for so many, so ensuring it's fair and reliable is paramount. They need to investigate any hint of technical problems to maintain trust in the system.
Right. Uni Abuja appointed a new acting registrar and admin change.
Key role in university operations.
And Bauchi varsity training lecturers on research and grant writing.
That's a positive investment in faculty development, boosting research capacity, helping them secure funding that's vital for a university's growth.
In Adamawa, they've set up learning centers for out-of-school children and divorcees.
A really commendable social initiative, providing educational opportunities for groups that might otherwise miss out. It's about empowerment, giving people skills and knowledge.
And an American couple donating food in Imo State.
A nice gesture of goodwill and charity. Always good to see.
But the kidnapping reports are grim. Releases after ransom in Kebbi and Delta.
Yes, it just highlights that terrible reality persists in some areas. The distress for victims and families is unimaginable.
And a truly tragic crime in Kano, a man arrested for killing his sister's boyfriend.
Horrendous, a reminder of the potential for violence even in personal relationships. The arrest is the first step towards justice, hopefully.
And a court okaying the release of a student's remains in Kwara for burial.
A necessary, though sad, process to allow the family closure and the ability to conduct funeral rites respectfully.
Right. Let's look at arts, culture, and sports briefly. Some big names headlining the Afroma launch in Ethiopia.
Yes, Tubaba, Makadzi, Stoneboy. It really shows the growing reach and recognition of African music globally. Afroma is a big platform for that.
And Aruna leading the Nigerian team to the World Championships in sports.
Great to see Nigerian athletes competing internationally. His leadership is a credit to his success, and it's inspiring for the country.
President Tinubu celebrating journalist Lekan Sote at 70.
Nice acknowledgement of the role veteran journalists play, important for the media's contribution to society.
And Lagos pledging support for the National Sports Festival.
Good to see state backing for national sporting events. That kind of support is crucial for developing talent and promoting sports.
Okay, let's quickly cover international affairs and migration. White South Africans arriving in the U.S., with Trump claiming discrimination.
Yeah, that's a complex and politically charged issue. Different narratives around it. Trump's comments certainly bring international attention to it.
And the Trump administration also revoked protections for Afghans in the U.S.
Yes, temporary protected status revoked. That has serious humanitarian consequences for those affected, creating huge uncertainty.
Meanwhile, the U.K. planning to cut immigration significantly.
By 100,000 annually is the plan. That's a major policy shift for the UK, likely with significant social and economic impacts down the line.
But on a positive international movement note, NHCon getting pilgrims to Saudi Arabia for Hajj.
Yes, over 9,000 airlifted successfully. A massive logistical feat enabling so many Nigerian Muslims to fulfill that important religious duty. Commendable coordination.
And finally, that Today in History snippet, the first Giro d'Italia cycle race in 1909.
A nice link to sporting history. And the Leonardo da Vinci quote you mentioned, learning never exhausts the mind. Quite fitting after wading through all these headlines.
It really is. As we wrap up this deep dive, it's just, wow, the sheer range of things happening in Nigeria on just one single day is staggering.
It truly is. Security, politics, economy, social issues, international links. It's incredibly dynamic.
And it's fascinating, like you said earlier, to see the contrast. You have this huge alleged internet fraud case. On the same day, a Nigerian team wins an award for an agri-tech solution.
Exactly. Both involving technology, both involving global interaction, but representing such different paths, one illicit, one incredibly positive and innovative. It highlights that complex reality.
So listening to all this, digesting this snapshot, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What really stands out as the biggest challenge or maybe the biggest opportunity facing Nigeria right now? And how interconnected are all these seemingly separate pieces?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There's certainly a lot to think about there, how these threads weave together.
Definitely food for thought. Well, these stories will continue to develop, of course. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive today.